Thanks for joining us, Sampath. And Sampath is one of the other most interesting people to talk to in the United States. They're not at the moment leading a populist movement.
Yes.
I just it's a hard segue.
Yes.
But you guys.
I'm the phone company guy, you know. I run a phone company. It's not that tough. It's not that hard.
I think it is pretty hard. And actually, I think I did want to start with something that we talked about the other day, which is the extent to which the phone company guy and everybody else, in a way that I think was less true a few years ago, is thinking about politics, is thinking about geopolitics, and it is at an event like this. And I'm curious. I mean, you've lived through that shift, and I'm curious how you, as a senior executive in this moment, kind of think about that balance.
Look, I think there are two things I look at. The first is, we're a large company, no surprise. Our strategy can be summed up in one sentence. We connect things and connect people.
Yeah.
That's it. There's nothing else we do. That's the sole strategy of what we do. Connect people, we connect things. Every single morning, evening, night, that's what we do. And when you go one step underneath that, we think the digital infrastructure that we are building, I mean, think about it. Over the last 7 years, we've invested $200 billion in America. There's no other company I can think of who's invested $200 billion just in America to build infrastructure like we've done. We are totally committed. And we think a strong digital infrastructure then is the foundation of almost any technology that comes, whether it's AI, whether it's robotics, whether it's computational biology, it's computational geology, it's mapping. Anything you do requires a strong foundation of infrastructure. For me, it's fiber. For me, it's mobility. It's cloud, which means data centers. That's it. So we are laser focused on building that. And a little bit, sometimes we were in the Scotch business. It takes us 10 to 12 years to build this infrastructure out. So someone has to do something now so that 10 years from later, you have the world's best infrastructure there. Someone did that 10 years ago, which is why we have really good infrastructure now. That's how we think about it. We have a much longer arc of time we do because our projects take time. Look, in and out, there will always be what I call these skirmishes, but it happens every 4 or 5 years, but we are super committed to a long-term horizon.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. I mean, I think this is a moment when the stock market has not rewarded a lot of companies. Verizon, one of the very few, up maybe a few percent this year, partly obviously because of those domestic investments. I'm curious if you think that is a long-term shift, or is things stabilized? Does the world go back to chasing Tesla and growth stocks?
Look, there'll always be this tension between value and growth. It's not new. It's going back as far as you can think of. Over the last 7, 8 years, growth has been rewarded more than value. But look, we are going to be in business for a very long time. In a very long time, because we have a resilient customer base. Our infrastructure is really good. We have strong cash flows. We're one of the top 4 or 5 dividend-paying companies on earth. And then that includes some of the sovereign oil companies as well. So we're a really good stock. We love it. We have a really long-term view of it. But, markets shift between value and growth. And if I predict, I'm going to be wrong anyways.
You don't want to try predicting?
I think value is back in vogue, but I've always said that 8 years from now. And
so it's a stopped clock sort of a situation slightly. You guys put out a report today, and you see an enormous share of everything happening across media, across digital media, across telecoms, and you put out this annual the report on hacking, basically, and digital malfeasance, which I think you reported was up 34%.
Yeah.
And that most of it is human involvement. Yeah. Which I think means that we're idiots, basically. What's new? What are you seeing in the sort of bad side of the digital world?
When your phone password is admin123, your password 123, it's a problem. So change that. But think
is that that's a substantial share of all hacking?
It is a lot, way more. And I'm going to get to that. Look, at the end of the day, we have, it's called the DBIR, Data Breach Investigation Report. We have access to 22,000 different security incidents that happened around the world. It's the largest collection of such reports. We work with agencies around the world to do that, and we look for trends. A couple of interesting trends. The first is the vast majority of breaches happen because someone wants an economic advantage. It's not the nation state stuff. It's because a criminal syndicate somewhere is trying to keep a loophole and get that. Almost 95, 96% of it tends to be that. 3 to 4% tends to be nation state actors doing other more complicated things. So it's in it for money. It's a good way for criminals to make money. They don't have to move goods around. They can sit where they are and they can hack into people. The second is ransomware. It's gone up massively. Almost 40% of breaches involve some form of ransomware. The average ransom payment's also gone up, so that's the other thing.
What is the average ransom payment?
It's like north of $100,000. It's a lot of money. The third interesting thing, which is what you were saying, is most of them happen because of human vulnerabilities. People watch James Bond and all these shows where people hack into systems, but more often than not, it's a human vulnerability. Hey, what's your password? Someone tells you your password. Or someone calls and says, hey, I'm in your house. I want to deliver a package. Can you give me the code to something? And you give the code. So it's phishing exercises, other things that leads to that. And it's gone up almost 30 to 40%. And it has a huge societal cost to it. And a lot of it is hygiene, corporate hygiene, as well as hygiene for personal individuals to do that. But every year, it becomes more and more profitable for the criminals to be in this space.
Growth industry. Is AI going to wind up giving the criminals superpowers, or is there some way to? Is this just going to get worse as we enter this AI era?
Yeah, look, it's two teams, both well resourced and well. It's like the playoffs between the Knicks and the Pistons that's going on right now. Two teams are doing very well. So if you think about it, let's start with AI. There are offenders and there are defenders. Let's start with AI for the defenders. Folks like ourselves. A couple of things we do. One is we have a lot of human manpower touching systems, tracking it, looking at vulnerabilities. You can automate and AI enable a lot of their tasks. So then they can be freed up to do more higher value work. The second thing is analytics. 2/3 of the world's data is unstructured data. It's emails, notes, Slack messages, text messages, random articles somewhere. And it's very difficult to put that in a database and analyze it. With AI, you can do that really well. You can look for patterns, you can look for vulnerabilities. So data analysis becomes extremely easy, and you can do this on the fly as well. The third is policy and compliance. When you write software, you have to go and attest 19 times, are you complying with this, are you complying? We don't need to do that. AI agentic code can go up and down your code base, track it, analyze it, and give you a score. So there are 3 or 4 really good things where AI helps the defender. But AI, unfortunately, helps the offender as well. Because earlier, they were doing manual. They would manually try and tap into you, look for a vulnerability in your social profile. But now with AI, they can set up these large bots that go and do thousands and thousands across all critical infrastructure and look for them. So this is going to be a cat and mouse game that's going to be played at a much higher gear right now. And look, it's important for society. It's important for governments that we take this very, very seriously.
There is a view, I think Matthew Prince from Cloudflare said this, that AI will ultimately favor the defender because you see every attack, but each attacker only sees one defense.
Yeah.
Did you believe that?
I wish he was right, but the attackers too have. Think about it. A single attacker sitting somewhere in a country, not in America, used to have X homes or X personnel they could attack. Now with AI, they've just increased that threat surface by 100x because they have these agents that can go and automate and look for vulnerabilities in your profile. They can scan everything you do and look for where are passwords weak, where is your policy weak. They can do a phishing attack, a spear attack. A lot of that can be automated. So unfortunately, it's a cat and mouse game. And I don't think I'm comfortable saying that the defenders get better at this.
No, that's too bad. It's a nice theory. I like to believe that.
Yeah, the Knicks are going to win still. So.
Oh, we got that. I'm a Nets fan, so there's no hope. More broadly, there is this very intense, unbelievably expensive competition right now between LLMs. Is that, which is adjacent to your industry? Is that healthy for this economy, or are we just lighting money on fire? What do you make of that? And between, by the way, and us and DeepSeek and the other Chinese LLMs too.
Look, I think DeepSeek was a good thing. It was a good thing, but China thing we may get to separately. But it was a good thing because in the value chain of AI, the LLM models were seeking too much rent. The model owners were seeking too much rent.
Well, they were spending so much money.
That's why they were seeking too much rent. Because they were spending so much and the rent went up. So the cost per gig, the cost per hour of compute was crazy high. So now the DeepSeek has shown in some way that you could do it for less. There's going to be a lot of emphasis on taking cost out and doing it for less. And it does two very interesting things. When there's less rent seeking on the LLM portion of the value chain, a lot of value accrues to the top of the stack through applications. People for 2-3 years kept calling, oh, he's just a ChatGPT wrapper. Now the ChatGPT wrapper has value and enterprise value to do stuff because he doesn't have to pay so much rent to the LLM underneath.
Yeah.
Same with the infrastructure guys, guys like us who do the fiber and the connectivity. We weren't getting enough rent, but now there's less rent seeking in the LLM. So I think this democratization of profit pools across the value chain is really good. Good for folks building more infrastructure and folks for innovation at the top of the stack. So I think it's a really cool thing.
I guess just to go a little deeper, where do you think most of the value will wind up? And one thing is, will a company like OpenAI ultimately be a valuable company, or is that going to be a sort of utility that barely ekes out a margin?
Look, I think most of the value will be on the top of the stack. In almost any industry, I think value always accrues to the top of the stack because the top.
So translate that out of business school.
Yeah.
What are we talking about here?
Yeah,
Who's on the top of this stack?
Applications. So, for example, you have an open AI model that then has a wrapper that goes and does insurance claims for you. So, if you're an insurance company, I like that because it takes something complex, puts an agentic framework around it that goes and automates insurance claims, or automates billing errors in my world, because we get a lot of billing errors, it automates billing. And it's basically going to replace, for the last 20 years, we've had this huge explosion of B2B software SaaS companies. So that market is going to get massively disrupted because you're going to have these agentic frameworks that can do that at much lower price points with much less complexity. And they don't need the whole API structures. APIs are programming interfaces that were built over the last 20, 30 years, because an agent can just go look up a website, it can look up a code, it can look up a database and do what a human being would do. So I think there's going to be a lot of value accretion in applications, but in vertical applications, insurance, telecom, construction, healthcare, sports, technology. So in those vertical, and you're going to see that over the next 3 to 4 years, that's where the explosion is going to happen.
And do you anticipate a huge labor market disruption as well? I mean, are there a lot of jobs? I mean, some of those things you just described are now being done by people.
With any new technology, there's always some disruption, but new jobs get created. For example, prompt engineer. I'm in the market for any of you in prompt engineering space out there, shoot me a note.
Liberal arts graduates, finally.
Yeah. So seriously, there's a job for you guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think there's a huge market in prompt engineering that didn't exist 3 years ago. So there will be disruption. There's going to be some reskilling, but new jobs will definitely take the space. Right now, AI can automate tasks. It cannot automate jobs yet. But between now and the next 5 years, it can start automating jobs. There will be some disruption nevertheless, but you have to reskill, and this is the right time to do it.
I was just talking to a PR person who was saying, well, we really want you to write a story about this so that the model will scrape it.
Yes.
And when people ask ChatGPT about our company, it'll hit your story because you have authority. And it isn't important to us whether any human beings read your story. It's like, well, I'm not sure what our business model is there, but it's an interesting.
That Oxford comma is not that important anymore.
I don't know, it might be an authority signal. Just a final question while we got another minute here on the kind of nuts and bolts of your business. Handset sales are slowing. Handsets, one of obviously the huge businesses of the last 20 years. You obviously sell a lot of them. Yeah. What's going on there?
I think if you think about it, there are 2 reasons why people buy new handsets. One, it broke. And the second is there's a new technology or form factor change. So let's go into both. Handsets now are a lot better than they were 5, 7, 10 years ago. The glass is better in the front, the glass in the back, even if you drop it, unless you drop it in the toilet, which more people do than we think.
Oh, I think seems normal to me.
Yeah, exactly. So they're built better. The handsets are built much better. Most companies, including ours, have insurance programs that replace handsets in a day. So less breakage. The second is there's not been much new form factor hardware in the handset space over the last couple of years. So combination of those 2. Let me give you numbers. Back in the day, every 24 months, you guys got new phones. Then it became 36 months. Then it became 40 months. Now it's well north of 40
It's going to be like refrigerators. Like you buy one and...
Yeah. So, but I think new form factors are going to come. Like the foldable is an interesting form factor that came from the Samsung, Google.
We're slightly out of time, but in this scramble, who wins, who loses? Is that a huge problem for Apple? Like who are the winners and losers of our refrigerator-like phones that we keep forever?
Look, I think companies like Apple and the others are also, back to my moving up stack, are moving into services, whether it's Apple TV, it's Apple Cloud, it's all the Apple Health, Apple Fitness. So they're getting more and more margin pool on services and applications that sit on top of the phone. Of course, the phone will be supremely important, and my sense is they'll keep innovating as faster. But innovation doesn't tend to be linear. It tends to be a little spiky. So every couple of years, you see a big innovation in hardware, not because they're not working hard. It's tough. it takes that many years to build the next thing. Even the hinge that folds the phone, there are like 60 different parts in that small hinge so that folds into itself. So it's tough, it's hard work, it's hardware. So my sense is you're going to see innovation, but it's going to happen in a very spiky way.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. This was fascinating.